some church bells from Alfredo Milani. So I ask Alfredo to close the microphone. Thank you. Oh, we also have Giulio. Welcome, Giulio. So Gulmira Bekmanova will speak first about flexible model for organizing blended and distance learning, and then a second presentation about a model of intelligent massive open online course development. And Gulmira participated to several of our workshops in ICCSA in the past years. So welcome, Gulmira, and please start your presentations.
Thank you, Valentina. I will try to start. My name is Gulmira Bekmanova. I am from Kazakhstan, Eurasian National University in Nur-Sultan. So I am very glad to hear and to see my colleagues because, as Valentina said, I usually take part in this conference I think this is my third conference. And once I visited Trieste in Italy, and I hope this year that I will visit again Italy, but according to the pandemic, it's not possible. It's not possible, but I am very glad to see you online. And let me introduce my paper, Flexible Model for Organization for Organizing Blended and Distance Learning. About our university is situated in the capital of Kazakhstan. Now the name of the capital of Kazakhstan is Nur-Sultan. So this university is quite big university, national university, the second university I can say in Kazakhstan according to the size. We have about exactly we have 1,900 students at the moment. So and we have this is classical university, traditional university, and all time we have only face-to-face classes. So according to the pandemic, we will move online, and we have a lot of problem nowadays. And one of my paper, this one exactly, about the lack of digital skills of our university teachers. So the main goal of this research is to create a flexible model of blended and distance learning, which will allow the students and teachers to work more efficiently and effectively, organize educational activities. The research also aims to increase interest in intelligent learning systems, blended distance and e-learning among teachers. So as I said, according to the pandemic, we will move online, and all our activities switch to distance learning, including all programs. So we will have a lot of problems now. My current position is head of the Distance Technology Center. So I was responsible for distance technology. I am responsible for distance technologies in our university. And the main problem I can say was the lack of digital skills of our teacher, especially of some traditional courses. So we organized a lot of seminars, webinars for our teachers, and then now we organize some courses for improving digital skills. And we decided that we need to divide our students for different groups, like they have, every teacher has different background in skills, and we have about 2,000 teachers in our university, so it's difficult to share them, to divide them to the groups, and we decided to organize some testing before we start teach them. So we prepare three level of tests, like test tasks of difficulty level R. It's very simple tasks which just identify the knowledge familiarity of our teachers with some digital technologies. Second, test tasks of difficulty level B. They are quite more difficult than the previous one. It's aimed knowledge of in typical situations, that is, in those situations with which the subject is familiar, or to check the knowledge of copy reproduction. So this test is quite more difficult than previous one. And the second is level C. It's aimed at the application of acquired knowledge and skills in non-standard conditions, that is in conditions previously unfamiliar to the subject, or to test knowledge of skills and applications. So I can show on this table levels of digital skills, like beginner, elementary, intermediate, and advanced. And you can see the number or percentage of tasks. So totally we have 50% of tasks level A, 30% of B, and 20% of C. And then we use some method of assessment. Let P be a finite and non-empty set representing a knowledge base of a given discipline. Q a finite and non-empty set representing a base of test questions on a given discipline. S a finite set representing a knowledge base of students' answers to the test questions is a given discipline. So possible to define the following rules for decision making. If the set of students answer an empty set, it is believed that there is no single answer to test questions. And if the set of students' answers to the test questions is non-empty set, but it's not contained in the knowledge base of a given discipline, then it is believed that the student does not know the material for a given discipline, and so on. I don't know, do you need some properly explanation of this method? I make this short presentation and extended one. If somebody needs, you can answer, and I can explain more neatly about this method. So the method of assessment is, you can see the formula on the side. So we use some fuzzy relation method for this assessment, and after that we create the ontological model of lifelong learning course. This ontological model allows us to use, you can see the three paths on the slide, the three paths, and then some good student can just pass test and not do all exercises from every module. And so that means that for every student we create some special trajectory, and the student has opportunity to skip some modules on the his educational course, depending on his level of success of when he passed the tests. So exactly, we have tests before we start in learning, and and we divide the students into three paths, like beginner and elementary here, intermediate here, and advanced, intermediate path 2, and advanced path 3. And then the student has study with using some online courses. That means that they can skip something, and they don't depend for everyone. So this is quite a flexible model for study. And conclusion. The content of this course is presented in the form of one ontological model, which was creating links between the course modules and test tasks. So based on the entrance testing, the students is enrolled in the learning trajectory. The training path consists of mandatory and additional modules for training. Additional module may be skipped if this test is passed successfully. And the training model is represented using the ontological model, and the decision-making rules for the model as the logical rules. So this is a short presentation. So as I said, I have some extended one if you have questions. And then I can show my second presentation because they are very close to each other. The name of the second presentation is Model of Intelligent Massive Open Online Course Development. And here the contents of this paper. So as you know, as I said before, the pandemic and lockdown regime caused a fast growth in number of online courses users. In our university, we have the web portal where we share our online courses, but now we have only 34 courses at the moment. And after this pandemic starts, so I have an idea that we need to improve our courses with using some intelligent elements, because we have some background on this way. So this is the main traits of online learning relevant in 2020. No, it's common. So we create, like in the previous presentation, the ontological model of the discipline, but this discipline is common discipline, I mean the bachelor discipline. In my example, this is discipline database theory, which I usually studied for my students for some period of time. And then we create for for this discipline, we create the ontology. For every topic, we create main terms and the competencies for every term, what the student exactly can do and what exactly student can show that he have a skill. And then we link fragments of video lecture with glossary keywords to rewind the lecture by the keywords. Second, to find answers to the lecture questions automatically in the video lecture. And third, to carry out the intelligent search in mock within the discipline in the human language. That means that we use this glossary and answer for the questions like question and answering system. And we have a background with our group in Kazakh natural language processing, and we have some background in creating some question and answering systems. So we use it for this discipline too, for creating intelligent search in mock within the discipline. So assessment of the discipline, like in the previous example, in the previous paper, we use some fuzzy assessment system for this, and but here the system is more deep, I can say, because we use some real natural language text. So we create some standard answers for the test questions, and then we compare standard answers with the students' answers given to us in the system, and create some and find and try to estimate the answer of the student. This is the mark. How we use the mark, it's like in the previous example too. And then you can see the fragment of this video content, like it's me, like the video lecture, but we use some NLP elements in this mock. No, this is the processes how we create the mock materials on a platform, and usually we use the mock expertise in our university, and the expertise includes standard mock expertise for content and didactic material quality, technical expertise of video lectures, and pedagogical expertise of mocks, and the verification of the mock intelligent functions, operation correctness is engaged additionally for intelligent search, systems verification of open tests, verification of questions and assignments regarding setting up of competencies and training results. And in this work, the model of intelligent massive open online courses development has been proposed. The discipline content is presented in shape of ontological model, which provides possibility to create connections between discipline topics, glossary, assignments, and questions. Thus, the intelligent search, questions, and answers in human language during learning, verification of achievement of training results through assignments, as well as students' open answers of students became possible. So I hope that in the future all online courses will include some intelligent elements, like maybe assessment, like maybe some kind of possibilities to answer in natural language, or find some information in video according some keywords, or not only keywords according to phrases. So I hope that it will be continue because, as I understood, it's necessary to prepare some high quality resources for the students, not only just video, like just video lesson, but with some intelligent functions. Thank you for attention. I can.
Thank you, Gulmira. I think it's very interesting to have this interactive way of having e-learning. I have a question on the second presentation. Did you think about, or did you implement any voice control on the NLP ontology?
Voice control?
Yes, it would be interesting if the student can ask with the voice instead of writing the question and be understood by the system. For example, through Google Home Mini or some other intelligent assistant.
It's a very interesting question. Now we don't have any voice control really, but my PhD thesis was on Kazakh speech recognition, so I really know how it's possible to organize. But I think that for implementing this, I need maybe some funding, not only from the university, from maybe some grant, because it's necessary to. I can say that for Kazakh language, we don't have any special ready tools like in Google, in other, because Kazakh language is not including in some big engines. And what we have only some separate tools which other different groups implement in Kazakhstan. But I think that for keywords it's really not a problem. For keywords we can do it okay without any funding, but if we need some continuous speech recognition, so I need that it's possible only if I will receive money from the university or from the government, because it needs some scientific research. Not only we need some big corpus, like corpus, I mean corpora, I don't know in English, corpora maybe.
Yes,
So I need some acoustic base in it. Exactly. So for this
I
I need some.
understand, because the Kazakh language, I remember all your studies in the past, so it's very difficult, not supported at all.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other question by the other people present?
Valentina, may I make a question to Mira, because the presentation was very interesting in this attempt to link fuzzy logic to ontologies, and I have a question about the usage of fuzzy logic in particular. How many clusters did you build up from your test? I mean, how many classes of students have you characterized by means of fuzzy rules?
How many classes?
Yes. For example, according to the answers the students gave you, no? Very skilled, not so skilled, completely out, I don't know, out of order with respect to the questions.
So we will have 3 group, if I understand you right. We will have 3 group, like for beginner and elementary 1 group. I don't know how it, now we have a testing of the teachers, and we will start in August with all our teachers. We divided them to the groups. So we have 1 group for beginner, second one for intermediate, and third group for advanced. And we have 3 type of course. Every course consists of 36 hours. That means that 3 modules. Every teacher, if he beginner, he can start from the beginning, and after he finishes 38 hours, he can start the second module for intermediate if he passed tests successfully. So that means that totally they can take 108 hours and start to be some how I can say advanced user of the digital skills, and we finish some distance technologies courses for teachers, because now we have the main problem what we had at the last period, that our students are very good in using computers, every technology. They don't have any questions how to use. They only ask how we will organize our course, how we will pass, only organization questions. And for our teachers, it was a difficult period of time, because they have had a lot of questions. They cannot use the main new technologies. They cannot how to really to present the information. And even we starting to prepare in course like methodics, like methods of teaching of students. I mean, they have lack of methods for distance learning, because before we never had students for distance, only for students with some special how I can say, with some special disabilities. But there is not so many students we had before, and they study online. So this is a real problem for university. I think that not only for our university, but we try to keep our quality in the same level. And so this is the main problem, not the equipment, not the network, not anything, even lack of competencies of teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, so we can go on with Fabio Sartori.
Yes.
Who will talk us about lurking reduction at school through virtual communities of practice, the Binario 9 and 3/4 project.
Okay. I'm trying to share the screen. Yes, okay.
Okay, we can see it.
You should see now. Okay, thank you and good morning, everyone. My name is Fabio Sartori, and I'm going to present a joint work with Claudia Maga, Barbara Tosi, and Alessandro Varallo. We reflect about the concept of virtual community in the education domain, and the recent motivation of our work is a COVID-19 pandemic that, as you probably know, has brought many countries over the world to close schools with a lot of problems for students that were interrupted in their learning processes with great difficulties, not only for students, but for parents and teachers too. In Italy, distance learning and blended learning have substituted traditional didactic education for 3 months. And we have experienced many problems. Technological issues per students in particular have been very affected by the difficulties in acquiring digital devices, network connections, and so on, and many problems also on the teacher side, since teachers were not so skilled in the adoption and in the using and configuration of distance learning platforms. But also many opportunities for research, many challenges. For example, we experienced the rising of new kinds of virtual communities made of parents, teachers, and students who collaborated to have to improve the performance of this kind of learning. Thus, we have reflected about the concept of visual community, that in literature is composed of 3 kinds of main participants that are knowledge contributors, who are fully involved in the support of the community by feeding the supporting system and so on, seeker and lurkers who are occasionally involved to look for information and knowledge on the system, but are not fully involved and in the community. Thus, we move to consider how we can support a virtual community by means of a system. Typically, knowledge management systems are implemented to allow the different members to interact with community at different level of granularity. We try to generalize the concept of knowledge management system to a sort of virtual community system 1. What does it mean, virtual community system? A computer application that support participants to confirm or improve their role within the community, because it is important that a community survive by a sort of evolution of its members in order to allow a full involvement by seeker and lurker too. The main feature of this kind of system depends on the domain where the virtual community acts, of course. We have to design different kind of system according to the domain and the kind of knowledge we have to share among the members. The important point is that a virtual community system must enable user to change their role within the community. So it should be designed at different level of complexity and involvement for users. In the case of education, this is quite this is quite simple because we have very very well characterized roles within the community. The case study I present you here is the Platform 9 3/4 project that is a collaboration between Italy and Switzerland in the frame of the Interreg program, aiming at promoting success at school for impaired students, in particular immigrants. We have focused on the difficulties of immigrants in understanding concepts in traditional learning because of their difficulties in language speaking and their difficulties in being involved in the society. So we have focused on immigrants, both in the Italian and Swiss side, and we have developed a virtual community made of teachers and knowledge engineers at the knowledge contributors level, of course, knowledge seekers that are tutors, people taken from university or higher level of schools to support pupils in their learning processes, and finally lurkers, students from middle school, and in particular immigrants in this step. The chosen framework was learning by doing, and in particular storytelling. We have thought each module as a story made of 3 chapters. Chapter 1, where introductory game was proposed to students to involve them in the topic of the lesson at a concrete level, with the concrete focus. The theme we choose was the holidays. So the different steps of holiday of a group of friends. Then we have a second level we call chapter 2, where theoretical concepts are introduced to support tutors in guiding pupils during the lesson development. And finally, the chapter 3, where more complex games are proposed to test tutors and students' capability to evolve. Our idea here is that if tutors and students are able to apply, to solve problems, applying the concepts they studied at chapter 2, they should be able to evolve their role, becoming contributors themselves. Few words about the preliminary results of the project. We have developed 15 complete stories about mathematics for a total of 45 learning modules. We have produced some questionnaires for testing the preparation of students at different steps, beginning, intermediate, and ending of the project. And we have defined the initial target community made of 2 teachers, 13 tutors, and 30 students from middle school. 29 of them are immigrants, sons of immigrants. So only one is Italian. Unfortunately, the project has been delayed due to COVID pandemic, so we have only initial results about the administration of the modules, but we have planned a lot of future work about the qualitative and quantitative analysis of learning benefits. In particular, we are planning to apply sense of virtual communities like indexes to analyze the qualitative and quantitative boundaries variation of virtual community. And we are planning to reuse the platform 9 3/4 experience for the COVID-19 pandemic management. In particular, we are trying to establish a synergy between University of Milan Bicocca and the schools of the quarter in order to improve the capability of teachers and students and families to answer to possible future school closure in order to make more effective and efficient the answer of the schools to this kind of problems. I have finished with my presentation, so I thank you for attention and waiting for possible questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabio. Any question? Okay, I have a question that is not strictly related to the work that you already done, but with the work that you will do later, about the benefits of the several features that you showed us. So I saw that you implemented the gamification, which is really great for children. How much do you think that it works? And is there any other feature that you think is more beneficial than others?
Yeah, we choose Scratch, of course, because it is a simple language with many interesting characteristics from the programming point of view, because we have taught teachers to use Scratch, of course, from the software engineering point of view. So we have reflected with them about the event programming or the object-oriented programming. The initial results were encouraging from every point of view. I mean, tutors were guys, because they are attending secondary school and the first years of university. They know Scratch. They have been interested in using them from another point of view with respect to the one they taught, they learned at school. And also teachers, many teachers didn't know anything about Scratch, because they have a very naive idea of coding at school, because the projects are not conducted by teachers, but external teachers or consulants that are paid from the school for this kind of activity. Our feeling is that this kind of technology could become a complementary with respect to traditional one. So our analysis of the community will be conducted from this point of view. How much a teacher is involved in feeding the community with new contents, for example, in how much a teacher will become able to feed the virtual community system with new content, a new way to produce contents. Of course, we will try to conduct this analysis also with children, but we will focus our analysis on seeker and contributors level with massive analysis.
Thank you very much, Fabio.
You're welcome.
Okay, so any other question? If there is no other question, I'll go on with my presentation. So I share the screen. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The slides without. Okay.
Yeah.
You see the slide. Perfect. Thank you. I also need to see them. Okay. Now I see it. Okay, so as you see, my presentation is about reshaping higher education with a platform based on Moodle, and it's not experimental paper, but is a case study. Because before opening the actual platform for University of Perugia, Italy, we used this other platform called eStudium that was in use for 10 years. So, going on with sorry, I have a problem with the slides. I try again to. I see that my slides are not moving. Sorry, I try to share them again. Okay, now it's moving. So the Studium Learning Platform has been a project funded.
You have to share the screen.
We cannot see the slides right now.
Okay, sorry. So before I didn't see the slides, and now you let me try again. Sorry. If you see, I cannot see. Okay, now you can see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you seeing the full screen?
Yes.
Okay. So you see the first slide, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is the second. So
Okay, perfect.
Studium has been a long-running project for 10 years, based, as I told, on the system Moodle, and was implemented at University of Perugia from 2005 to, of course, 10 years later. So this capstone culminating in a refined product, which is now the academic platform Unistudium. The eStudium application in this 10 years activity, this platform has been a learning pathway experience for a variety of applications, including STEM courses from high school education to high specialization academic courses, or third mission and teacher's qualification, with a particular focus on the usability and on the teacher's self-evaluation, where the teacher can evaluate the results in a way that I will explain later. So the analysis of both objective and subjective evaluations collected over these 10 years from the activity logs, so web analytics and so on, together also with the teachers and students' feedback, showed how eStudium contributed to reshaping the educational offer of our university. So the most interesting part was that students progressively demanded higher quality of the learning process. So, were the students to ask a better e-learning system. The e-learning evolution on the 10 years was on a vertical level and horizontal level. So the remote participation could become a complete integration of on these two levels. So the vertical level reserved to teacher-student interaction. So the student and the teacher communicate remotely, for example, initially by email, by self-assessment tests, comments on assignments and papers and so on. And then horizontally, with the public-teacher group interaction. So the exchange takes place using both the synchronous and asynchronous communication tools, such as chats and forums. Under the vision of the contemporary natural evolution of this technological learning, assessing and sharing the educational experience based on the evolution on the innovative technologies for lifelong e-learning, particular focus was given on how such contribution can enhance this actual extraordinary situation, which sees a worldwide unexpected need for remote communication due to the COVID-19 emergency. The studium goals were to integrate the traditional didactics with advanced e-learning technologies through the activation of this learning management system for the distribution of courses and services, focusing on the remote access for off-site students and commutators. Notice that in 2005, when the project started, the personal internet connection was not commonly available, as it can be now for some families in the COVID-19 Italian school situation, where a family may not have the opportunity to connect in real time several students or workers. And the goal was also to diffuse the computing education. In fact, Studium was born first for computer science and then for other topics. The specific tools that have been provided for Studium are related to students' automated assessment, where an automated correction of assignments is made by the system with or without a teacher's proof. The student's self-assessment and teacher's self-evaluation with a specific focus on inclusion and performance. For example, detecting and managing diverse needs of underperforming students or overperforming students needing more in-depth documents and to study. And also detecting which of the provided learning objects were the most or less used, where the less used probably needed a content review or a presentation review. So a course in eStudium is a space that does not replace the traditional lesson, but goes hand in hand with it, so amplifying the possibilities of delivery and of use of the learning objects, allowing the teacher to keep track of the activities which are then capitalized or can be revised if needed. The platform architecture allowed to be used in different ways for traditional teaching or advanced teaching, from a simple notice board to the most sophisticated use of self-training. Under the vision of this natural evolution, I show you the phases in which consisted the evolution of eStudium. So the first phase was a one-year preliminary phase with 13 study courses for a total of 300 lessons. The teachers' main activities at that time were the insertion of programs, alerts, and events. Of course, frequent updates of documents, so upload of educational material and learning objects, and the preparation and download of registration lists for the in-person exams, and then also examination quizzes to be done online. The students' main activities in this phase were exploration and zapping of the courses, reading all the material proposed by the teachers, and of course performing the tests and examination quizzes. The average duration of the connection was still short. For students, an average of 11 minutes, and for teachers of 5 minutes. The second phase was the evolution of the experiment until 2011 with the events registration form, with the enrollment for exam sessions, the reservation for laboratory access, assignment to classes, confirmation with the user with email, and so on. The multilingual keyboard module, the mathematical keyboard module, allowing the input and visualization of mathematical symbols, and the online student reception, so one-to-one talks between teacher and student with the slides view in real time and real-time textual chat. Then the timetable and attendance monitoring module with the weighted activities with virtual minutes valid for attendance certification.
Valentina?
She might have had some connection problems, so...
Yes, I think so.
She'll be back soon, hopefully.
Yes, we wait some minutes.
So we still wait Valentina for a little bit.
Yes. Giulio, tu hai la possibilità di sentirlo, Valentina?
Sì, ma penso che stia cercando di rientrare, quindi magari se la chiamo è più un disturbo che altro.
Ok.
Comunque pensavo, visto che dopo non c'è niente, dopo c'è l'altro nostro workshop e poi c'è uno slot vacante, se non riuscisse a rientrare ora potrebbe completarlo magari.
Di rifarla dopo, non so.
Ho controllato adesso nel
Sì, non so se passare al prossimo slot o aspettare ancora un po'. Perché abbiamo perso anche Alfredo mentre
Mm,
è frizzato da 1 minuto, credo.
sì.
E vedo che ha perso la connessione. Alfredo is back. Maybe.
Yeah.
Valentina, oh, ok. You are
Okay,
here.
I advised Sara before that I had some problems.
Sì, ma lo sapevamo bene come gestire. Ok.
Okay, I don't know how much you missed, but I think that maybe the second phase or the third phase.
You're speaking about the second phase.
Second phase, okay. So just without putting on the slides another time, I just tell a few things. That in the third phase was consolidated all what regarded the mobile systems. Because if firstly we had the interaction through SMS and the first cell phones, then we had to deal with the smartphones, tablets, and so on. So the conclusion of all this 10 years capstone is that, of course, it's needed a continuous learning and research, but also that the most important thing in our experience was the collaboration between students and teachers. I think that it is enough.
Okay, thanks.
Any question?
I have one, Valentina.
Okay, Julius.
So, 2005 was really back in time. So I imagine at the time such systems were not so popular, right?
Right.
How did, especially the teachers and professor see it? Who were the first ones to jump on the boat? Let's say.
Of course, the first ones were the teachers of the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science, and mostly the computer scientists. And then other scientists like teachers of biology and similar. I think that Alfredo can answer better because he was in charge of managing the platform at that time.
Yes, I would just add this element that we started to use e-learning platform for one big reason. I mean, two reasons. One was that we love innovation, of course, as a computer scientist, and the other one was necessity. It was needed because we actually started seriously to use that platform once we had a lot of students of computer science basic courses for other faculties. That was the real start. I remember I was managing around 300 students in a very large class. And of course, for just communicating, it was natural to use this kind of platform. No, and then we also have exams in the labs, of course, not online. But it was very, very important, and that other colleagues started to become curious and join the platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks to all the speakers, and I hope to see you next year in Cagliari, in Sardinia, where we may enjoy also the seaside and the sun of Italy. So goodbye to everybody, and in 1 minute we will go to the other session, which is Acer Emore for emotion recognition and effective computing. So I suggest just 2 minutes of break.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Martina.
Bye. See you in 2 minutes. Valentina?
Okay, I think that we can start the Emory workshop.
Yes, but we can see your camera. It's like gray.
I don't know why. Murphy's Law today is...
In the meantime, we ask, is Clement Leong or James here?
Hi.
Hi? Clement? Or James? Are you here? Okay, we will go on. Please, Valentina.
Okay, I think that now you can see me.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
So for the first paper, we have Ryan Donovan present.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You can share the screen using the icon
Sure
on
thing.
the left-hand side.
Okay. Is it sharing?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Ryan Donovan is speaking about quantifying the links between personality subtraits and the basic emotions. So for our workshop, we usually had a sort of introduction on emotion recognition, but due to this short time that we have this year with remote presentations, we will not do it. So each presenter will have about 8 minutes plus 2 of question and answer. We have 1 hour for presentations, so we can have some more minutes, but we will try to be on time. So please, Ryan, go on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. As I said, my name is Ryan Donovan, and I'm a PhD student at Cork Institute of Technology with a background in psychology. And I'm here to talk to you today about a research study that I conducted with my PhD supervisors on quantifying the links between personality subtraits and the basic emotions. In terms of our research question, we were interested in whether people with high in certain personalities are more likely as a result to experience certain emotional states. In terms of psychology research, you tend to find that the phenomena of personality and emotions are treated as distinct, and when in actual fact there is a great deal of overlap between the two. Even if you look at definitions of personality, like a definition of a personality trait is a typical expression of behavior, cognition, motivation, and emotion across time. So we believe that this creates a gap in the literature that needs to be addressed in that what exactly is the relationship between personality and emotions. In terms of other motivations we had a motivation to create a bidirectional emotional state to personality trait mapping that could be harnessed by effective computing researchers, psychology researchers, or anyone else interested in this area. And why we believe this to be a value, to give an example, if you were to say to have a data set with the personality characteristics of a set of participants, and you wanted to infer likely emotional reactions, then this mapping could help you infer that. For example, if you wanted to play them an advertisement and to have a gauge of how they're likely to react to that advertisement based on their personality, this would be the value of such a bidirectional emotional state to personality trait mapping. And it also enables the vice versa, where you might have the emotional reactions and then you can infer what is the likely personality characteristics of a participant group. In terms of how we answer this question, is that we thought it was best to conduct a quantitative experimental research study. In terms of personality traits, I said, are typical expressions of behavior, cognition, motivation, and emotion across time. The 5-factor model is the predominant model of personality traits in psychology. It has been used widely in the last 30 to 40 years. Now, the 5-factor model argues that there exists 5 broad categories of personality traits, which are openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Now, the five-factor model argues that all other relevant traits are subsumed within these 5 factors. And one of the reasons why the five-factor model has been so widely used is that it has been shown to be an accurate predictor of key life outcomes ranging from academic success, occupational success, number of romantic partners in life, likelihood of early mortality, likelihood of developing a particular physical illness, or likelihood of developing a mental health disorder. Now, in the last 10 to 15 years, there has been the introduction to the personality trait hierarchy of the subtrait level, and the subtrait level here are indicated by the pink nodes. You can see here, there's 2 for each 5-factor category. Now, the potential advantage to the subtrait level is that it offers a potentially more precise and high-resolution scientific analysis possibilities, because the 5-factor model on its own is quite broad in that it allows generalizability at the sacrifice of some level of specificity, and what the subtrait level is somewhat a compensation for that. In terms of the emotions, we consider the basic emotions in our research study. The basic emotions are a set of emotions which are considered distinct from one another, and that they have reliable physical, neurophysiological, psychological, and behavioral signals such as facial expressions or physiological patterns. In terms of which emotions we considered as basic emotions, generally there are 6 canonical basic emotions, which are anger, disgust, fear, joy, sadness, and surprise. We have also included anxiety as a potential basic emotion because anxiety has been linked to higher levels of neuroticism. And if we can find a correlated mapping between neuroticism and anxiety, or anxiety with any other personality trait, then this may indicate that it is worthy of a basic emotion status. But this is purely a hypothetical or exploratory variable inclusion. In terms of another question we had, in terms of the relationship between basic emotion and personality traits, we were interested in whether the subtrait level was necessary for analyzing relationships between personality traits and basic emotions. And what I mean by that is that if you do have the subtrait level, can you pick up relationships that the 5-factor model, due to its generalizability, is unable to do? And this is also part of our research study, what we wanted to answer. In terms of our experimental procedure, we had 38 participants come into a laboratory environment. Each participant carried out the same experimental procedure, where first they answered a Big 5 aspect scale, which is a 5-factor model of a personality questionnaire, which also categorizes people based on the subtraits level. They then watched 12 emotionally provocative videos, and after which they answered 12 post-video emotion questionnaires, which asked them to what extent they felt any of the 7 basic emotions included whilst watching the previous video. In terms of our statistical analysis, we conducted a Pearson-R correlation, which is a valid measure for measuring a linear relationship between 2 variables. It results in a R effect size, which ranges from -1, which is a perfectly negative linear relationship, 0, no relationship, and +1, a perfectly positive linear relationship. And this resulted in a correlated mapping. In terms of our hypothesis, we had several. The first, that each emotion would correlate significantly and substantially with at least one of the Big 5 or their subtraits. The extroversion which has been labeled a positive affect personality trait in the past, would positively correlate with the emotion joy. Neuroticism, which has been previously labeled a negative affect personality trait, would correlate positively with one of the following emotions: fear, anxiety, or sadness. That agreeableness would negatively correlate with anger. Agreeableness has been linked to paternal behavior. That conscientiousness would probably positively correlate with disgust. There has been some theoretical postulations that conscientiousness is motivated by disgust sensitivity, and we wanted to test that. And openness to experience would correlate substantially with a greater than 0.10 or less than -0.10 effect size with every emotion across the subtraits. The reason for that is that openness to experience has been linked to a rich level of emotional experience rather than any particular emotion. Now, you may have noticed we not included any of the subtraits in our hypothesis, and the reason for that is that in the limited research analyzing the relationship between personality traits and the basic emotions, even less so exists for the subtrait level, which is still relatively new, and hence any subtrait analysis in our study was purely exploratory and non-directional. Our experiment results, this is our correlated mapping with personality traits on the left-hand side and the basic emotions on the top row. The direction of a relationship between any 2 variables is indicated by color. Red indicates a negative relationship, white, no relationship, and green, a positive relationship. The strength or magnitude of that relationship is indicated by the effect size, and the shade of color, darker shades, indicate a stronger relationship, whether negative or positive. Now, in our p-values, we've also included p-values between 0.05 and 0.15 to compensate for the somewhat small effect size and the fact that this is, in a lot of ways, an exploratory study. We also believe that this correlated mapping is a good visualization which can be used for inferencing, for making inferences based on making inference of personality based on emotions or emotions based on personality. In terms of our hypothesis, in terms of hypothesis 1, we found that out of the 6 canonical basic emotions, they did correlate significantly or closest or reaching statistical significance with at least one of the big 5 traits or their subtraits. The exception to this was, and in some cases with multiple, so you see for surprise, I had multiple correlations, same too with sadness and joy. Now, the only emotion that did not correlate significantly or close to significant with personality trait is anxiety, which does indicate that it may not deserve the basic emotion categorization. In terms of hypothesis 2, extroversion did not positively correlate with the emotion joy, which was contrary to prior research and was rather a surprising result. In terms of neuroticism did positively correlate with fear, anxiety, or sadness, but only statistically significantly with sadness. Now, it also had close to statistically significant results with anger and disgust, and both of those emotions are negatively valent, have a negative valence or a negative feeling attached to it, which supports the idea that neuroticism is somewhat linked to experiences of negative emotion. Agreeableness did negatively correlate with anger, however, not to a statistically significant result. Conscientiousness actually negatively correlated with disgust, and this is particularly the case for industriousness, which approached statistical significance, which is in contrast to prior theorizing. And openness to experience had a substantial effect size with every emotion except fear, so 6 of the 7 emotions. However, it's hard to draw a firm conclusion from this result, as you can find similar pattern of correlations in other personality traits. So, for example, you see the same with neuroticism, except for anxiety, there are substantial effect sizes across the big 5, the 5-factor trait and its subtraits. In terms of conclusions, our results indicated that people high in certain personality traits are, as a result, more likely to experience certain emotions. And yes, the subtrait level was necessary to identify relationships between personality traits and emotions. And you often found in a case where a 5-factor level trait and its subtrait both predicted an emotion, the subtrait level predicted it or had a higher effect size. In terms of future work, we would like to take this experiment procedure and scale it to include a larger sample size in order to test the robustness of our results. We would also like to assess the reproducibility across modalities of the relationship between personality traits and emotions. So in terms of facial expression analysis, semantic analysis, affective personality. In this study, we did include facial expression analysis. We have not included the results today, but we plan to do so in the future. And we believe that this provides the foundation for state-to-trait inferences that can be utilized by affective computing or psychology researchers, and that this can potentially enable affective computing more and more to move into the era from state analysis, short-term state analysis, to long-term trait analysis in interactions with users and human-computer interactions. So that sums it up for me today. If you have any questions after this talk, feel free to ask, or if you have any questions after this event, feel free to email me at brendandonovan@mycat.ie, or my PhD supervisor, Dr. Rory O'Reilly, at rory.o'reilly@cat.ie. And I have also included a list of references here in case anyone is interested in following up on anything I've spoken about. So thank you very much for listening, and that concludes my talk for today.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. I have a question. I am very interested, and I thank you for this multidisciplinary view. Since I'm not an expert about the Big 5 model, I have a question about the correlation. I hope I can be clear in stating it. I see that some personality traits, for example, may you go again to your slide number 8, the one with the results. Okay. 8 or any one of these is okay. For example, I see that compassion is negatively correlated to joy. So this means that a person in the moment when he feels compassion does not feel joy, or a person which main trait is compassion scarcely feels joy? I don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So in this case, I meant that they were less likely to feel joy in comparison to people who are low in compassion. Now, a potential reason for this, it could be a factor of the experimental study. So a lot of the experimental results or the study contained, I say, like in terms of our sad video, we had video clips per emotions. In terms of our sad video clips, like I can give you a clip. One was from The Lion King, where spoiler alert, Simba's father Mufasa dies. So it might be the case that the people who were high in compassion had less joy because they really sympathized more with the characters in the videos, and as well felt their level of sadness, or really were distressed by the fact that these the people in the videos were experiencing pain in the pain related videos. So in this case, yeah, people who were high in compassion as a result seem to experience less joy in comparison to other personality traits.
So for them, the movie will be a sad movie.
That part would be more sad for them than it would be for maybe someone low in compassion or agreeableness.
I see. I understand. Thank you very much. Any other question from the other presents?
Yeah, I have one.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan, thank you for the really interesting work. It's really also it integrates what we've been doing from another point of view, so that's really nice. And I have a question. I also have had the chance to read the work, and I saw that you also recorded the participants, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the whole evaluation in this work was done through questionnaires, if
right.
I'm not wrong. So are you planning to analyze at a future time these recordings to integrate these results?
Yeah, we would like to. So we would like to analyze it and assess maybe differences between self-reported emotions and facial expressions. So it might be the case that I'm interested in the idea of if there might be certain certain people with certain personality traits might be less aware of their emotions. So it might be the case that the facial expression analysis would detect it, but it wouldn't be the case with the self-report. So yes, that is the case we would like to do in the future, and we would also like to do it with a larger sample size, because one of the unfortunate things with our emotional video analysis was that for some participants the video wasn't clear enough, so it wasn't easy to do. We use facial action coding analysis, so we would like to expand the sample size so that we can be really sure of our results and not offer results that might be flimsy or shaky. But yes, we will definitely plan to do it in the future.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because I told you, because we also have been working on facial recognition, and there is room for detecting emotions, so that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that we can go on. If anybody else wants to give question, they have your email.
Mm-hmm.
So also from the YouTube streaming, maybe you will have some feedback.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for their questions and for listening again.
Thank you. So for the second paper, it's Gulmira Bekmanova again, with the method of sentiment preservation in the Kazakh machine translation. So the presenter is Lena, not Gulmira. Lena that can buy.
Maybe she's muted.
I think she is.
We cannot hear you, but we can see the slides.
Lena, you have to unmute the microphone.
Okay.
I will
Gulmira.
try. Okay, it's Gulmira. Yes, Lena should be present this presentation, but she has some technical issue. She cannot. So I will try. I think that she listened from YouTube. Lena, she is a PhD student, and now she's third-year PhD student, and her PhD thesis is on Kazakh-Turkish mesh and translation. And we try to keep some sentiment or some emotion from the text when we translate from the Kazakh to Turkish. Only now we have these emotions only from the Kazakh to Turkish, not back at the moment. But I will hope that when she finishes, we keep in the two directions, from the Kazakh Turkish and the Turkish to Kazakh. So the preservation of the text sentiment in mesh and translation from the Kazakh to Turkish language is one of the interesting and important tasks. This method we present between Kazakh and Turkish, and we may assume that consideration of sentiment in mesh and translation for these languages combinations will bring a good results while preservation of the meaning of the text. So the quality of mesh and translation depends on the quality on the translations of words expressing emotions from one language to another, and not only words but emotions as well. For emotion translations, we need to do a sentiment analysis in one language and transfer these emotions to another one. In order to do this, both languages need to have a sentiment knowledge base with sentiment scores. Method of sentiment analysis in the Kazakh Turkish mesh and translation. So you see the old stage of this translation, and first we have the Kazakh language parser, then we use the morphological analysis of the Kazakh language. Second, we use the syntax analyzer, then sentiment analyzer. After that, we use, and from the Turkish language, we use Turkish morphological analyzer, Turkish language syntax, and rules-based translator. Turkish language sentiment analyzer. Then we use rule-based translator, Turkish language syntax analyzer, and morphologic analyzer too. So this is like the same process for two languages. About morphological analyzer, I can show, yes, we use again the ontological models. So we compare two ontological models of Kazakh and Turkish languages. So I can say that the Kazakh is one of the Turkish group languages. So we have quite similar morphology. You can see here that we have quite similar ontological model of noun. You can see here in Kazakh and Turkish languages. So we can have quite similar order of words order in the sentences and so on. So it allows us to use some rules for creating translator, and a comparative analysis of the nouns features shows that out of 54 features, 9 of them are present in the Kazakh language and are absent in the Turkish. So consequently, 83% of nouns features are the same for the both languages. So here you can see the syntax analyzer where we use Chomsky grammar and formal description of this grammar. This is the constituency-based parse trees of the above-mentioned sentences of the Turkish language. You see, and this is the phrase, And for sentiment analysis, we have another work from one of the authors. This is paper Banu Yergesh. She had defense this year about sentiment analysis, and she has some background and emotion recognition in Kazakh language. So we used results from Banu and combine them in this work and try to keep some emotions when we extract sentiment from the Kazakh texts. So we use this, I think maybe Valentina and Alfredo remember that we present this method in one of the conference before. So we use this scale like -2 very negative, -1 negative, 0 null neutral, 1 positive, and 2 very positive. So our database consists of more than 13,000 of words and phrases, which has this mark of negative, very negative, negative, neutral, positive, or very positive. And then the feature that affects sentiment determination of text in the Kazakh language is models of morphology, formal models of simple sentences structure of the Kazakh-Turkish combinations described. Models and methods of sentiment analysis of text in the Kazakh languages are created, and the morphological and syntactic rules of the Kazakh and Turkish languages are compared. And it's planned to involve experts to evaluate the text translation results with emotional kernels in the future. So I can say that now Lena has about 300,000 of phrases in her in her database, so base knowledge between Kazakh and Turkish. With using 13,000 of words with some sentiment marks or scores, we keep in simple sentences some emotional meaning when we translate it to Turkish. I finished, and if you have questions, you can ask. Thank you.
Any question? Okay, I have a question which is just a curiosity. So I know already that Kazakh is a language that is not really, it's very difficult, it's not supported by data and ontologies, and you did a great job in this sense. What about Turkish? Is Turkish the same, or it's more supported in the literature, I mean?
I think that Turkish, of course, is the more supported language because they start more earlier than the Kazakh language. So they, no, first of all, they have quite big population in comparison with the Kazakh. Kazakh about only 16 millions in Kazakhstan, but Turkish, I don't remember how much people, but they have more people and work maybe 40 years for NLP of Turkish language, and for Kazakh language we start only in 90s the first works, and now we don't have like corpuses or some tools. But for Turkish, you can find in WordNet, in SentiWordNet, and and you can find some open resources for Turkish language. So they work more and have a good results. So we used some, and they try to support us because one of the supervisor of Lena, he works in Istanbul Technical University. So they have some open tools and can share with us. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gulmira. So we can go to the next presentation, which is from James Deng or Clement Leung. Are they present? Okay, I don't have a feedback, so we can go on with the last presentation of the workshop. Maybe if later they come back, they can be included. So the last presentation is by Alfredo Milani from University of Perugia, and it's about exploring negative emotions to preserve social distance in pandemics. And this work was made in a collaboration with me, Valentina Franzoni, and with Giulio Biondi, who is also present. So I now ask to Alfredo to share the screen. I will speak for the very first slides, and then Alfredo will go on.
Yes,
okay.
Thanks.
Go to the first slide. Okay, so it's very important in this topic to give this introduction, which is an ethical introduction, because during the pandemic emergency, we saw that many countries used fear to induce people to underlie the given rules. So they decided to use, first of all, the mass media to show how they dealt with the situation, with the emergency, but also the military forces, and in some cases also robots. So they induced the fear to be caught in an illicit activity. In this paper, we don't want to endorse fear as a tool, because a lot of ethical questions can raise. But we can see that there are some benefits to use robots for this case instead of other tools. Okay, Alfredo, please go to the second slide. Okay, so during these pandemics, we saw, for example, in Italy, a very wide use of the military forces. And even for cases that were not really dangerous. For example, in the first picture, you can see a helicopter going to catch two people in the seaside. They were not together with a lot of people, only two. In another, you can see a normal citizen being put down by the police and then handcuffed and brought to the police department. Or several carabinieri, like a squad of carabinieri, going after a runner on the beach. So this was made to induce the fear of the control, but using people. In France, we saw another approach. So they induced the fear of control, but not only using people, using also webcams put on, for example, buses or trains and so on. In China, also, there was a fear of control because the police used drones. So, who did not underlie the rules could be caught by a drone without even being, let's say, even without understanding it, because the drones went to take pictures and then the police came to put people in jail. Instead, there was also another approach in Singapore. In Singapore, in a park, in a national park, was used a robot. It was a four-legged robot, similar to a dog, running around and detecting people going together and not using the face mask, and advising them with a vocal sign. So with the voice, they just told, please don't stay together, and so on. So we see that in this case, the fear is the fear of a robot. Please, Milani, next slide. Okay, so the side effects of containment measures can be the extremely high cost, like using helicopters, the privacy, which is not guaranteed because of the massive use of mass media to make examples of the containment measures, and a very wide case of traumatic experiences. We know that in several countries, people asked for psychological and psychotherapeutical support after this kind of containment measures. Instead, using an ad hoc robot, if we want to use fear, has the good effect to induce fear of the robot affordance. So of that robot, in that case, with that affordance, which will be not present out of the pandemic emergency situation, and so it will not induce a trauma. And the privacy can be or not guaranteed. Okay, thank you. Alfredo, please go on.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction of Valentina. So our basic idea is was to introduce an architecture in which a swarm of robots, a particular kind of robots, are able to enforce social distance. So we are actually introducing an architecture for distributed cooperating robot enforcing social distances using affordances. Affordances like fears, in which the presence of the robots should not be explicitly addressing in the social distance, but also using the deterrent effect of the robot. That means the presence of the robot itself could remind the people of their behavior, their proper behavior. So the goal will be maximizing the people respect of regulation, like social distances. And of course, the typical scenario is a wider area, like a park, for instance, in which we want to guarantee maximum coverage. On the other hand, we want to minimize the impact on people. So we don't want to increase the level of, let's say, unease. Instead, the people that behave properly should be keeping doing their normal activity with no problem. Okay, so the idea is to model how a swarm of such robots can reach these objectives. So let me introduce firstly the agent. The example that Valentina mentioned before were mostly not autonomous robots. In the case of drones, they were just remote driven by the police, of course, the helicopter. And what we want to achieve is the idea of using an autonomous hexapod robot. We were working in a previous project already with this hexapod robot, which looks like a giant metal spider, and usually, despite of the fear of people that have of spider, usually the approach of people with respect to this kind of robots is to consider them a kind of cute object. So the hardware is the reference hardware is a 6 legs all-terrain robot, which can move actually on any kind of terrain. And the 6 legs can be bended in different way. They have a 18 degree of freedom. The robot is provided with a camera. The legs and the body are provided with LED lights. strips of LED lights, speakers, so it can emit sounds, and he has a computational and communication capability. Of course, the computation capability are kind of limited one, and this is a consequence in some activity that he can, in some decision ability that can be implemented in the robot. So the actions which are implemented natively are very, very very simple one, like moving a single leg, like walking, turning on and off LEDs, turning on and off sounds. Of course, this action can be combined, and this is what we have done in a previous project, that a robot can actually exhibit some kind of behaviors. That is what we call has behavior. In this case, is a composition of single action. So, and the behaviors that we were going to use as affordance to attract people attention, and of course to attract people attention on potential or violation of the anomaly in the behavior with respect to regulation for COVID distances. So what are these behavior? So the robot, because of all this degree of freedom, can easily shake the body, can kneel, can rise, can wave a single legs while it's walking with the other 5 legs, can flash or running the LED strips, and can emitting beeping sounds and also voices. And all these behaviors can be done at different intensity, frequency, or different volume in the case of sound. Another hypothesis that is quite easy, there is a lot of software out there, is that Hexapod agent is provided with capability for recognizing violation of the social distances, for instance, to recognize group of people, to recognize if people are wearing, not wearing masks. There are already a lot of even commercial software doing this. And is also able to recognize the presence of other hexapod in the scene. And for each one element, people and other hexapod is able to locate them in space and to evaluate their state, their movement, and their direction. So this is the basic hypothesis. And this hypothesis is also, especially in the first part I already mentioned to you, is already out there. We have developed it in previous projects. And these capabilities are quite available nowadays. Okay, so this is the agent. So the problem is how we can make the agent. The scenario is a public space where you have a swarm of agents, and you want to realize the compliance of the regulation with respect to social distances and so on. So the idea, this is a first, let's say, large picture, is that the hexapod is continuously staying in 3 different main states. First one is random patrol, is moving. We will going to explain in a minute. It can be resting, idle. Imagine in a park this 6 legs hexapod just staying parked in a place. Or it can be in a alert or intervention state. So random patrol state consists in exploring the area with a random walk, driven by the following behavioral rules. So first of all, the hexapod want to maintain a minimum distance from other hexapod, and this is meant to distribute the random walk evenly in the space. Second important behavioral rules is that the preference, there is a preference for unexplored areas. So you randomly choose unexplored area with preferring them to area which has already explored, and this helps to distribute the walls evenly in the time. And they will maintain a people X about the distance. So in a standard random patrolling situation, you will see the robots going, browsing the area without approaching people and maintaining distances with respect to other robots. So basically, the emerging behavior is that the hexapod will spread uniformly in a surveillance area, so we will maximize coverage, and they will tend to maintain a background position with respect to people seen. So, in other words, they minimize impact and visibility. While the robot is staying in a random patrol for a certain time without moving to intervention or without alerting, the idea is that the robot will move to the idle state because we don't detect any problem in the area, and so we move it to a state in which is just observing what is going on. Of course, again, as any rules, this is randomized and is penalized by the presence of other idle agent in the area. So if the certain time threshold pass theta 1 without detecting any anomalous situation, then the robot will tend probabilistically to move to the rest idle state. Of course, after idle, while it's idle, it continues to monitor the environment for a fixed position, and will return to random patrol state after the time interval theta 2. So the idea again is that if you staying in a certain place without moving for a long time, the probability that something is happening is right. So basically moving from random patrol, rest idle, random patrol. So if nothing is detected, this will be the emerging behavior of the swarm. So what happens is if an anomaly situation is detected. If an anomaly situation is detected, the robot will go to the alert or intervention state. So in this state, some behavioral rules applied again, depending on the situation. When a robot is detecting a certain situation as a suspect situation, so anomaly, for instance, in this figure, the robot down here is detecting a group of people, but probably because of the distance of the overposition of the bodies is not able to establish if the situation is alerting or not. So since it's able to locate the presence of other agents, in this case, he will ask the agent closer to the target to provide a confirmation of the situation, if the situation is a alert situation, a real alert situation or not. So in this case, the only action is a communication to another agent, which is closer to the target. If instead there's no other agent closer to the target, then the decision is to approach the target and to move toward the area, get a better data which allow to evaluate the anomaly, the level of anomaly. What is the anomaly is recognized, so is a true anomaly. Then again, we have two big different situations. First one is the anomaly has been detected, but also the expected effect of other agents can be evaluated and compared to the anomaly target level. This is a key point of all this architecture. We are able to evaluate the expected effect of other agent actions. From a distance, the agent can only evaluate the position, direction, and state, like lighting, beeping, etc., of the other agents. So
I think that you have a problem connection.
Yes, I think so. I try to contact him by phone.
Ryan, I see that you raise your hand. You are muted.
Yeah, I have a question for afterwards, so I just had my hand raised.
Okay, okay.
Okay, Milani is advised that he is experiencing some problems. If you wanted to tell us the question, maybe before he comes back, we can answer.
Oh yeah, sure. I was interested in potential cultural Oh, I can wait till the end.
Yeah. Okay. It's back. He's back.
Okay, I'm really sorry. Thanks for Valentina for advising me on the problem. I will deactivate my camera in order to minimize the problem. Okay.
You have to share again the slides.
Yes, yes. I'm going to share. I'm going to share. Okay.
We still have about 2 minutes, and then
yes, I will.
Question. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, really sorry for. Okay. So I just say that there are two main behavioral rules. First one is when the anomaly, the true anomaly is detected. The first one is to evaluate if other agents are taking care of the situation. So you remember I say that we have the ability to recognize other agents in the space. And the second is the situation in which no other agent is intervening. So is, for instance, the evaluation of this agent is that is moving to another direction, so is probably not taking care. And this has come the point in which the exabot, the autonomous exabot, has to decide the intervention. Okay. Intervention again means to decide which specific action. You remember we had the action of moving, action of waving, action of shaking body, and turning on light, flashing light, or turning on with different parameters. So in a deciding action, we have a function which estimates the increment in affordance level, in other words, to obtain a people reaction, and the expected decrement in anomaly level. So the idea is the more you, the stronger you have an action, the more high is the effort you have on people. But of course, the decide action function calculates an expected decrement in anomaly level, but in the real case, real people could behave differently than expected, and reaction of people can vary over the time. There is a very common phenomenon of adaptation to negative affordance. If if you think, for instance, of being surprised is something that you easily adapt. There is some gesture can surprise people the first time, but maybe we don't surprise people anymore the second and third time you use it. And this can also happen with this, let's say, negative affordance. So the idea is that we implement the implemented function are just initialized bootstrapping value, but the real core is to be able to use the observation of real people reactions to learn the real value of this function and to learn the policies. So the idea, the final idea is that the decision can be managed by Q-learning reinforcement Q-learning algorithm, in which we collect periodically by observation of this robot form, the state, the action, and the reward obtained, in which the reward is represented by people reaction, by the let's say by the efficacy of the action itself. So the idea is that this Q-learning algorithm can run not on board, of course, because we don't have enough computational capability, but it can run periodically by collecting the observation of the robots. So the idea is that the Q-learning then will update the policy that in the next time slot, for instance, at the day level, could be uploaded on the distributed robots. So the idea is then that, as I said before, this estimation of observation of effort, the increment of affordance level, is initially implemented in a function, but lately is learned by the real situation. Okay, I conclude, and we have shown this distributed architecture for autonomous cooperating agent. The key points are the primary state cycle that I show with random patrol, idle state, or alert state, where the collective emergence to maximize the coverage of space and to minimize the impact, obtaining a seamless presence in the environment if there is no need to intervene. On the other hand, the other intervention decisions are taken by what to do, basically, is taken by rules which implements the function which implements the estimation of user reaction, and a distributed Q-learning algorithm is used to adapt these functions to the environment and to be able to adapt to the evolution of the affordance impact, like adaptation of user to some affordance. So what is next in our activity will be the validation. Although we have some of the real robots, we want to validate and we will go on validating this architecture with a NetLogo agent environment simulation. Okay, this is concluding my presentation.
Okay,
thank you.
We already have a question, Alfredo. So please,
yes.
Ryan. Sorry, Ryan, we cannot hear you. We have a sort of bug. We hear a noise, maybe the cable.
We can't hear you.
Okay, the noise voice is not
Ryan, I
present.
muted you. I'm sorry because you have noise.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, fine.
Thank you. So great, really interesting presentation. The question I had was something that popped up when you were talking about it, is that do you envision that there will be cultural differences that will require different forms of behavior or shape from the autonomous hexapod or robot, in that, you know, if you take, for example, I know there's a perception that in Asian cultures that there's a more positive association with technology. Yeah. So, and in West, it might be more like Skynet, Terminator thing. So is that there might be different forms of behavior needed per culture. So maybe in Western cultures, it has to be less threatening, like turning on light or sound. Whereas in maybe in Eastern cultures, you can do more physical behavior, like shake the body, as you mentioned, or move an arm or a leg. Do you envision that could be the case?
Yes, I can say something, Alfredo. I can say something about it. So the affordance model of the emotions is based on one of our previous works, and it's made of several different data, let's say. So some of them will be objective for agriculture, but some of them will be, of course, culture dependent. So for now, we are in the state of simulating the model. In the case when we have to implement the model, it will be implemented in a particular culture, of course. For example, also Asian people is more strict in following rules than, for example, Italian people, but also expressing in a different way the emotion.
Right.
If you saw the affordance model, we gave a few details, but in the paper there is something more. But the affordance model takes care of the face expression, but most of all of the behavior. So if two people are gathering together with maybe a third one, and the robot comes in front of them, if they stop the gathering, it will be enough for the robot to understand that the action was successful. While in other particular cases that we took care in the paper, for example, a person panicking in an open area where people are maintaining the social distance, but there is a lot of people, there is a potential crowd. If the person is panicking, the robot should be able to understanding to call the other robots and maybe also an emergency human squad, and they can go to go around this person, both to protect him and to contain him. So that there can be, of course, many different cases.
Right.
Can I add one thing? So you are totally right. The difference between culture are quite important. That's why, and actually, even the evaluation as a modern approach in general to AI, artificial intelligence, we can imagine to attract lighting or flashing the light or beeping thing to use Q-learning. So observation of the reaction will help to adapt to better behavior. So the idea is that normal robots will check action, what term of reinforcement learning, what we call reward. The reward will be people's behavior. So they will able to adapt to people's behavior. In fact, what I expect is that maybe it's like the leg
Alfredo, you have some sound problems.
Dog in Singapore, maybe the first you find it funny, and later.
Okay, Alfredo, we cannot hear you properly, so I stop you, but I think that the concept is clear already. Yeah. Okay, so this room, this virtual room, will not be used in the next hour. So I see that now James Deng is with us, Dr. James, for the other paper, for the presentation of deep convolutional and recurrent neural networks for emotion recognition from human behaviors. So even if we are very late, we don't have particular problems to stay here and here.
I have to close the room in maximum 11:30.
Okay, maybe in 10 minutes.
But I think that it's okay. It will be fine.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Okay, Dr. Deng, James, hello, welcome. You can share your screen using the icon on the left-hand side of your screen.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Maybe the network is not real. I am in China and I use the VPN. Our topic is deep convolutional and recurrent neural networks for emotion recognition from human behaviors. So I will talk about the table of contents is the first is the introduction. Then I will give introduction of literature review and human behavior representation, how to model human behaviors and emotion. And the last is experiments. So the first is the introduction. As we will know that emotion matters, many theories or models have been invented to model the emotions. There are triangle relationships among emotion, cognition, and behaviors. Human behaviors can convey a lot of emotional information. For example, when people stand up, when people walk around, when people hop or sit down, a lot of behaviors can convey different emotions. So the motivation is that human because the IoT develops very fast, so it's very easy to get the sensor data from the IoT device. So, but there is lack of real studies on such topics, so we want to make some exploration on these areas. So in this paper we focus on the convolutional and recurrent neural networks on modeling human behavior and emotion. So the problem is how can we predict the emotion conveyed by people's movement behavior? So, for example, we can get the accelerator from different from the IoT device or wideband. How can we use this data to predict people's emotion, such as happy or sad or lowers? The literature review is that there are many literatures on modeling emotion. The most famous is Russia's human arousal and valence, two-dimensional emotion theory, and three-dimensional emotion theory. Most of the methods to modeling human emotion based on the deep neural networks. For example, the long short-term memory or bi-dictionary, and some other sequence model. So here we will also focus on the sequence model. For the human behavior representation, the first is you need to represent the human behaviors. So we use the time series to represent human behaviors. Each point represents the IoT data we get. The emotion representation here we use the discrete to simplify. We use the discrete emotion, for example, the happy, sad, excited, or angry, very simple zero emotions. For the other is the dimensional emotion. Dimensional emotion for you can say the left vague arousal valence model or prior arousal dominance model. So how we model the how we model the sequence time series data to predict emotion. Maybe this is a magnitude 1 or magnitude many problems. This is the basic. This is the previous work we have done to modeling human behavior and emotion. We use the deep bi-dictionary LSTM. You can say the bottom is feature sequence is the input data, and the upper layer are the bi-dictionary LSTM, and the upper layer, the second upper layer are the attention mechanism to at last we can predict the emotion. So the deep bi-dictionary LSTM with residual collection. Okay, I will. So in this paper, we also consider the convolutional neural network. The input convolutionary block is the same as the time series with LSTM. So the three-dimensional convolutionary computation and batch normalization and activation will be used. After that, all this will global pooling, and failure to predict the emotion. This is the framework of this paper. We consider both the convolutional and recurrent neural networks. The left part is the left part. Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. The left part is the convolutional block, and the red part is the LSTM part. So you can at the top layer we calculate all these parts, these two parts, and then use the traditional deep learning softmax to predict the emotion. So for the experiment, we have collected data by 10 people, and use wearable brands to collect three-dimensional accelerometer data. Five movement behaviors. You can say here the work fast and relative gently represent angry, and work slowly and smaller represent sad. Short movement represent anxiety. Up and down represent exciting. Last is arm stretched out to the front represents the joy. So the experiments show that the 3D ACC represents only use the three-dimensional accelerometer data. Plus shape means contains the curve centroid flex less and roll off and data. Contrast features represent cortices and screws, zero crossing. Through the experiment, you can see that use all these features, the validation and test result is best. So this table shows the LSTM and the attention-based LSTM. So the attention-based LSTM is performs best than without attention mechanism. So this table shows the CNN and LSTM. So you can see that the CNN validation is 95.9%. The CNN CNAB-LSTM deals for deep dimension by dictionary LSTM with attention and CNN. So you can see that the CNN our proposed model CNN and attention-based deep by dictionary LSTM with 4 layers achieves the highest testing result. So we categorize all the emotion class. You can see that exciting achieves the highest occurrence, and the anxiety achieves the lowest occurrence. We also cross the emotion categories based on the positive, negative, and average. You can see that the positive maybe achieve the largest occurrence. So the conclusion is that enormous human behaviors can convey a lot of emotional information. Human behaviors. A deep model of convolutional and recurrent neural network is appropriate to model the relationship between human behaviors and emotion. Experiment shows that the proposed deep structure model is well performed. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I think we have space for one question, please. Any question? Okay, I only give you a comment. I think it's a very interesting work because once you take care of the arousal level, even the Plutchik model can be implemented. Usually we always start from Ekman, but Plutchik would be very interesting to be exploited. So thank you, James.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so with this speech, we conclude our Acere More workshop on affective computing and emotion recognition. I thank all the speakers and all the participants and all the people that will watch it on YouTube. Thank you and see you in the next workshops.
Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, James. I'm very happy to see you again.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah, for the moderation.
And thank you, Sarah, for the help.